Hi friend, I'm Karla Lee and welcome to Voice4Kids podcast number 9, and today we're going to be talking about counselling for you and your child. Voice4Kids, the raw, real truth of co-parenting through your child's eyes. I'm your host, Karla Lee, and it's time to hear their voice. Welcome to the Voice4Kids podcast. Hey, and welcome back to podcast number 9. I'm Karla Lee with Voice4Kids, and today we're talking about counselling for you and your child and why it's so important to have counselling. And counselling is a positive thing. This is one thing I want to say right from the get-go. Counselling is a positive thing. It actually shows that you have the initiative to want to help yourself and help your children. And so for me, I went through a stage where obviously when I was younger that I was frustrated. I didn't have anyone to communicate with and I didn't have anyone to talk to. And I do talk about how my mum did send me to a psychiatrist, which was hers. And she just thought because I shared how I was feeling so much and I was so angry about certain things, I think I was around 19, she just said, well, why don't you just go and have one session with them? So I remember going to this psychiatrist and he said to me, what's the problem? What do you want to share? And I remember I just raveled my whole life off to him, obviously from the separation up until 19, like it was a story. I just said, well, this happened and then this happened and my dad said this and this happened, Mum. And I just went through this whole process of just telling a story. And I articulated it quite well because I kind of, obviously I'd lived it and I've relived it in my mind so many times. And I remember him turning around and saying to me, I don't know if I can help you because you seem like one of the most well-rounded people that's come out of a divorce as a child. And I thought to myself, but I'm struggling here, I'm really struggling with what's going on and what happened and I'm angry about this and I didn't get answers to this. But he was trying to explain to me that when I told him the story, the situation, he said to me, you just knew what happened. He said you could see that you knew what went wrong, you knew what you needed, you knew what help, you didn't get and you've worked it out for yourself. You've pretty much like counselled yourself. And I remember looking at him thinking, okay, so this means this is something I've got to have, going to have to manage myself. And he just wasn't sure he could help me because he pretty much thought that I was in a place that I was quite knowledgeable and could probably help myself through that process. So I remember moving on from that stage, I then, obviously still went through more struggles. And it wasn't till I was 25 and I've gone into a church and planted myself in a church and realised obviously by faith that, I could move forward in things, but I had those struggles and I had counselling with a lady and she was amazing. Christian counselling for me was amazing. It's very different, I would say, to just standard counselling. I don't know, there's just something about it that's different for me because they touch on the spirit, and how you feel your soul and all those inner feelings that sometimes don't get touched in everyday counselling. And her name was Yvonne and she was amazing. And I remember sitting with her for 3 months and I was so excited to go to those counselling sessions every single week. I remember we got close to the end of it and I didn't really want it to end. And she's like, but you're good, Karla, you're good. You've worked through all this and you know what happened. Like she said the same things as him. Like she said, I believe you already know what happened. You know what went wrong. She said, you actually articulated so well. And she was more kind of the one that did encourage me to use what I had in my hand to help people because she could see that I wanted to do that. And she said to me, you remind me of Peter in the Bible. And when I looked up what that was, she said, Peter walked on water. He was the one who stepped out of the boat and he's the one who had the faith to walk towards Jesus. And when she said that, I thought, see, there's that word faith again. Faith when I first came into the church for me was a big thing because I was at that stage in my life where I was like, I thought, not my life was over, but it was just like nothing had gone right for me. And, really at the end of the day, if God's real, like, show me you're real because I don't believe in anything anymore. I'm at that stage in my life. And faith was that word that I really hung on to. And she said, you have so much faith, you really believe in yourself and you can do it. She said, you're strong, stronger than you think. And it was from there that birthing in me came of taking my mess to become a message. It was actually earlier in my life, before I was a Christian, that I started writing about my story and what went wrong, because I did feel I wanted to write about it, because obviously that desire was there. But it actually was a really negative point that I was coming from. I was talking about what had happened to me and what they did to me and how they should have been this, and it was like very negative. So when I come out of this counselling, I remember getting that book, or the manuscript, I should say, and I just tore it up. I ripped it up, and I just thought, no, I'm going to start this again, and I'm going to start this from a healed perspective, a positive perspective. I'm not here just to talk bad about anyone in my family. I'm here just to say, okay, this is what went wrong, and this is how I can help people. And that's exactly where my mindset was at. Then I had the faith that I could actually turn things around for people, give them some tools, and give them some help. So for you, you must seek counselling early on if you need it. Don't brush it on the carpet for you or your child. Don't just, a broken vessel can't help another broken vessel. If you see your children really need your help and you feel that they're going to be wanting your help and they don't want to see someone else, you have to be in a healed place yourself, because the pressure's on you to help them and then you're already broken. And having sometimes guided counselling yourself can help you take those tools that counsellor helps you with and implement them with your child. And you can even ask your counsellor, I need to go home and talk to my son and daughter about this. What could I say? They could give you some guidance in that counselling. So seek it. Don't brush things under the carpet. Don't brush your own problems under the carpet, because by the time you've done that yourself, you are a time bomb waiting to happen. And this is why a lot of parents react to their children. And when the children are playing up because of the separation and divorce, the reason sometimes you're a very reactive parent is because you're still dealing with your stuff. And the last thing you need is their stuff on top of your stuff. That's basically what it is. So take the time to get that counselling for yourself. You can find them, your local area should have one. A lot of churches have great counselling. And you may know someone that's in that field already, or someone that that's had counselling. They might be able to recommend someone. But just be mindful that it's a positive step for you moving forward. It's actually the thing you really need to move forward. Because sometimes when you just let things bottle up, or you just kind of let little bits out but not everything, what happens is unfinished business, like there's things that are not finished. And those things can erupt later in a new relationship, and you realise that they weren't dealt with, but you think it's that new relationship's the problem, but no, it's actually the fact that you didn't deal with this prior. You've left things, undone. So in saying that, it's always important to also find a really healthy sounding board, which is close people around you. And what I mean by that is you might have a counsellor, and that might be the only person you go to, which is fine. But if you also want a sounding board, make sure it's a healthy one. And what I mean by that is, don't find a friend who's also divorced and went through a negative divorce and they're still writing on their negative, and then you're going to them about your divorce and they're like, oh, I know, I've been there, and and they're trying to match up with you so you're both on the negative and you just stay in that negative. That is probably one of the most unhealthiest places. I've seen it before. I've seen it recently. And I know some people in my world that have been divorced for years, and they are still negative about it, and this is years later. And what they do is every time they talk to someone, they talk about, oh yeah, my marriage was like this, and they still talk on the negative. And then when new people get a separated and divorced, they're quick to attach themselves to that person because they want to say, oh yeah, I'm there too, I know what it's like. And they then, because they're still in the negative, this person's trying to get out of the negative, but they're going to hop in their negative and they stay there. And it's unhealthy. It's a really unhealthy place to be. So when I say good sounding board, find a friend, it could be a relative, a close girlfriend, that's actually going to challenge you. And it could be a guy friend, it could be a mate. They're going to challenge you. They're not going to let you just dwell in your, shortcomings, whatever's happened. They're going to also challenge you. Say, okay, they should be challenging you with things like this. So you're talking about what's happened. They might say, yeah, but okay, so that's happened, but what are you going to do about it? Can you actually change that? No, you can't change that. Mate, you need to get up and you need to just let go of that and just move forward. Like, you might need someone that's going to challenge you, and that's a healthy relationship, because if you've got someone that's going to always sit in where you're dwindling down and coming down and sulking, because, sometimes we can really sulk about these situations and woe is me. Yes, things might have been done to you that are wrong. I'm not saying that they haven't been, but you can't stay there. There's a season, yes, you might be in that for a little bit of time, but you have to be every day saying to yourself, am I taking a step forward every day? Sometimes we can take steps forward and 1 step back. That happens. But if you're going 2 steps forward and 6 steps back, and then 3 steps forward and 8 steps back, there's something wrong, right? It's either who you're hanging around, you're not getting any help, you're not getting any good counsel. So look at that. That's really, really important. The other one is mediation. Okay, mediation. So mediation is another way that you can get help. So you could be getting private counselling, and then you're getting that counsellor to maybe mediate between you and your ex, and having good conversations about the kids and what's best for the kids, and how you can have a mutual business together. And what I mean by business, I say this to people, you have a company, okay? And that company is your marriage. And your marriage fell apart, so the company fell apart. This is the best way I can describe it. And when that company fell apart, you had assets that you'd bought in that company, and those assets are your children. And those assets aren't going anywhere. It's not like a company where you can sell your assets off and half and half here. No, you can't, because it's a human being. But half and half can be the care that you have. Half time here, half time there. Working out what's best for the kids. What age are they? Are they at the age that you can sit and have a conversation with them, work through this together with them? Or are they at an age that they're way too young and you have to mutually try and work this out? A parenting plan you can work out together. You don't always have to go to the family court to work out mediation and all those things. You could probably sit with family court. You can sit with mediation and a counsellor and probably work things out with a parenting plan. Mediation is very healthy for you learning about your children. The reason I do Voice4Kids is for people like you right now. If you are just newly separated, early interventions, the area I really like to work in is by saying to you, okay, you've separated, talk through things, talk through your finances, talk through the care of the kids, talk through the sports that they do, talk through discipline that you're going to have into 2 homes. Talk through these things, work out something. At the end of the day, your situation here has got nothing to do with them there. Okay, this is an adult situation, and if you bring that into here, he's going to be damaged, and then this middleman's going to grow up damaged because they're taking on the burdens of what you've put on top of them, and you're dictating things in their life because of the anger that's still here. You have to learn to be selfless and not selfish, regardless if there was an affair, regardless if there was just a lot of backbiting, if there was just some heavy stuff that happened in the separation that you're still hanging on to and you haven't let go of. You can't make that the catalyst for how you're going to raise your children together. It's just not going to work that way. So you really have to look at how we're going to do this so that's actually in the best interest of the children. So you can either look at my courses. I've got a 6-hour course. I've got some short courses. I've got books, ebooks, paperback. I've got a lot of resource, and I just focus on the kids and the best interests of them and what I went through as a child divorce and what I wish went differently and what I wish my parents had done and said in another way, where I wish they talked to me where they didn't. I go through all these things, and pretty much a lot of my material in a lot of ways could probably counsel you to have a different mindset of how you actually move forward in your separation. So that could probably save you a lot of money, because I can tell you now you're going to spend probably at least $120 to $150 in every counselling, psychiatrist, whatever session you're going to be in, where my courses are one-off payments and it's done, but it's going to give you a deep insight into these kids. And I'm not saying this to sell the course. I'm saying this to legitimately tell you that what I have available for you is very rare. I've never seen it really out there in this kind of format. This is why I want to give this out, so that people are obviously you can watch these YouTubes, you can go to Spotify and listen to the audios. There's a lot of things I say on the different social media channels, but I really want parents to have tools right now that can help their children, and the counselling that you need, because I never had that. As I said, I never had that. I wish I had that. I wish I'd been in counselling. I wish I had my parents communicating to me. I wish they understood how I felt, because then I probably wouldn't have gone through the 17 years of hell that I felt like I went through, because there was lack of it. So do your homework. Don't just brush this under the carpet, because this is what was done to me and I rebelled after that. I was angry, I was frustrated, I dabbled into all the things I shouldn't have dabbled into. I went down all the wrong roads I shouldn't have gone down because of the pain that I was going through. So just be mindful that counselling is a positive thing. As I said, my tools are there available online. Seek counselling for your children. Your children might be happy to see a counsellor. You can ask your children, would you like to speak to someone? You might even have a close relative, like just say there's a close auntie or an uncle that's very close to your child. They might be more inclined to open up to them, and that's okay. That's okay. And, give them that free rein to share what they want to share, and be, I hope making sure that they're an auntie or an uncle or someone that's, positive and can just kind of listen to them and give them some constructive advice, and leave that private between them if they just need to share. But obviously they can only tell you something if it seems alarming, but overall it's an outlet. I'm trying to say the kids need an outlet. You need an outlet. They are just mini adults. They need an outlet. You have to remember, don't just see them as kids, okay? They're little adults, still growing, mind still growing, things like that. And the last thing I want to just talk about is journaling. So I used to journal a lot of things. A lot of things in my book, Please Don't Go, is little bits of poetry that I used to write. I'd wake up in the middle of the night upset and I'd write a little poem about missing my dad or whatever it was. Journaling is great. For me, obviously becoming a Christian when I was 25, I used to say, dear God, and just, write like I was talking to God, and this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through, and getting those feelings out, and please help me with this, help me with that, change this in me, help me be better in this, strengthen me in this. It was just good for me. That's how I did it. Some people just like to write Dear Diary. Whatever you feel that you want to do. But what I'm saying is letting it out is sometimes a good release for you, especially before you go to bed. I sometimes feel like when you do that, I used to find before I went to bed, because there's that saying, Battlefield of the Mind. There's a really good book called Battlefield of the Mind. If you leave it all in there and you go to sleep, it can be playing on you. But if you write it all out, you've kind of got it all out, and I find you can rest easier. I used to put on some lovely Christian music when I go to sleep, just really, really like on repeat. There's a really beautiful song called Oceans. I used to put that on repeat and go to sleep, and I really enjoyed just having that peaceful sleep, and I'd already done my diary journal. And that's how I actually wrote my book. And that's, emotionally, I was so healed from writing my book, Please Don't Go, about my journey of being a child divorced, because as I was typing, I remember I'd be, crying and tears coming down my cheeks, because it was so healing for me to write a book. But journaling can be the same. Journaling can be the same. And get a nice little book for your kids. What you do is you put it next to their bed, and you put a pen there, and you say, if ever you want to write anything, you're feeling anything, you just want to write it down, this is here for you, and it really helps you. And maybe you have one and you show them, look, I've got one too, and let's do this, that when we want to let something out, and each night just write something, write how we're feeling, and then write something about positive. What are we going to do this week that's positive for ourselves? Or it's just an encouraging thing that you can do together. So I find that it's helpful. It's helpful to have, that outlet of communicating to a counsellor, going to mediation, having a close friend that you can have as a sounding board that's a positive person, and also diarising. I just think they're all really positive things, and that's what it should be about. It should be about positive things that you can do right now, positive things that you can implement in your world, in your child's world, and making it more lighthearted, because it's such a heavy season, and it is important that you do activate something. Don't assume your kids are okay. A lot of kids will say, I'm fine. You got to ask yourself, is that fine sound like they're fine? Because it's not always fine, right? When they're little, of course they need the guidance, and just check up on them all the time. I'm here, my door's open if you want to talk to me, and just be present. And that's pretty much what this podcast is about. It can seem like it's a heavy topic, but it's same time, it's about just taking positive steps. That's all I can say, just positive steps. So podcast number 10 is actually going to be about children's activities outside of school. And the reason I want to talk about that is because outside of school, because, obviously kids, the broken home, go to school, the activities are so important for the kids. There are other outlets. There's a good reason they should have that other outlet. But also those things can sometimes be dropped due to separation. They can be changed, and they can be detrimental to the kids, and why it's important to keep them. So please stay tuned for podcast number 10. And I really hope you enjoyed this one about counselling for you and your child. I really think that if you start now, implement things now, and if you're already down the track 1 or 2 years, it's never too late. It's never too late to say sorry to your kids. It's never too late to say, you know what, I haven't talked to you much about this separation lately, but I really think that I should have, and I'm really sorry, and please forgive me. And, do you want to talk about this? Just say it. Just say, I'm sorry. I want to be there for you. They might be negative at first, but just give it time. Don't pressure them. And, taking any steps forward is better than taking steps back. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you soon on the new podcast. My name's Karla Lee from Voice4Kids. I'll see you soon.